I find it exhausting to listen to, but so from a listener standpoint, I just, it can kind of demonstrate a composer's technical prowess, which can be impressive in the same way that like crazy prog rock or metal can be. And I like, I like some sort of the original old guard of prog rock, like Yes and Genesis. I love that stuff.
Sure.
But it's not because it's complex. It's like, it's still good and then has just enough complexity and to make it interesting. Complexity for the sake of complexity, I don't find interesting. And so, but for some people, combat music can be a chance to flex a little bit. Bust out all the musical tricks, but I just find it tired. Like for instance, I love John Williams, love him, right? He's amazing. I think he's incredible. And objectively speaking, the production on the scores for the prequels is better than the original movies. That doesn't mean the performances are better, but like, the original ones are recorded in a studio that's a little bit dead sounding. If you sort of listen to them, it's still these amazing, British musicians who are incredible and playing at virtuosic levels. But it's just, it's sort of, I don't think anybody knew how important or special it was at the time. And then by the time they get to Return of the Jedi, it's produced a little bit better. They get the production level of them gets a little bit better as they go along. But then for the prequels, he got to do all three of those at Abbey Road with his team of people that he had been working with now for decades, and he's much more comfortable with his writing. But the problem with those scores is, he has to kind of go backwards from the original movies, which have all this amazing thematic material. Well, he has to kind of do a prequel version of those. So he can't break out some of his strongest themes. He has to just kind of hint at them and say, what's a reduced version of this? And so to me, they're less
grow into the theme that we all know.
Exactly. And so to me, that makes them less interesting because they're less catchy. There's just less to grab onto. And then, like the second one is kind of the biggest offender, even though the second one has my favorite of the concert suites. It has Across the Stars, which I think is such a beautiful piece of music. But it's like almost all just combat music. And I hate it. It's like people love those prequel scores because it's John Williams that is like most muscular, just like bam, like crazy combat music. And I'm like, this stuff is so tiring to listen to. It's just always dialed up to 10. There's no interesting melodies and stuff. Like I can still in my head, hum the music for when the TIE fighters attack the Millennium Falcon, when they escape the Death Star in the first one, or the asteroid battle music. Like all that stuff from the original trilogy is all seared into my brain. And there's nothing about the combat music or the battle music in the prequels that is remarkable. So to me, it's masked by more is more, right? And maybe I don't know how he feels about it. So I never like listening to those. I'll listen to the concert suite arrangements that he does of like Anakin's theme and Across the Stars and all that kind of stuff. But I never go back and revisit them because I think they're really dull, even though they sound great. So in games, and specifically with Guild Wars, there's a couple things at play here. So with combat music, for me, I don't like it. So it's tedious to write, right? And so and because you have to fill up so much space and keep the energy going and not just sit on like one sort of drum or string rhythm the whole time. You got to like mix it up a bunch. You end up putting in a ton of effort for a relatively short amount of music, right? So it'll take me all day to write like 30 seconds of music. I'm just like, sucks. Like, and I got to pick it up tomorrow and try to get this to 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And it's exhausting. Like the notes per capita is like way out of whack for me. So I don't enjoy the process of writing it, which that's the hard, that's like the foundation of it all. It's hard to overcome that. I don't like listening to it. And then in game, in a game like Guild Wars, if you're hearing combat music, what's happening is you're in a fight, right? And Guild Wars doesn't even trigger combat music until you cross over a certain threshold of how long you've been fighting an enemy or a group of enemies and how many enemies you're fighting. Mm-hmm. So you might be in a battle with 5 or 6, Aetherblade bandits or whatever around you, just casting spells. And, there's all sorts of cacophony happening And then on top of that, you have to pile on all this music. Like, what's more important, really complex orchestral writing, or the sound of your spells being cast, right? And then on top of that, the nature of the game is it's an MMO. So you're probably playing it with other people. And if you are playing it with other people, you might not even have the music turned on because you're talking to your guildmates on Discord or something. Mm-hmm. So then it's like, what the fuck is the point of even writing this music? Spending all this effort doing something that makes me miserable, that I don't think is both, satisfying creatively or even practical for the situation it plays in. And then in the end, somebody just goes whoop and turns it down. So yes. I don't want to do it. And since Path of Fire, for the most part, I've been able to just farm it out to people who are good at it, and been able to guide the direction a little bit so that it's not just 100-piece orchestra, 100-piece choir, just loud,